He checked the time again, 7:45 p.m. The restaurant reservation was for 7, of course, Daniel muttered, trying to fix his daughter's shoe in the back seat. Of course, we'd lose a shoe right before meeting a stranger. Daddy, it's not lost. It's hiding, said his 5-year-old daughter, Emily, clutching her teddy bear like it was her best friend in the world. Her voice was sweet, her innocence unshaken by his frustration. He smiled weakly. You're right, sweet pea. Maybe your shoe's shy. He finally slipped it on her tiny foot, then jumped behind the wheel of his battered sedan. The dashboard light flickered, a reminder of how worn out life had become. He wasn't supposed to be here tonight. Blind dates weren't his thing. He was a mechanic, a single dad juggling jobs, bills, and bedtime stories. His friend Marcus had insisted, come on, Dan. She's amazing. You need to meet people again. It's been 3 years since Emma passed. His wife. His heart. He sighed. Just dinner, he whispered to himself. Then home. The restaurant was all white marble and golden lights, too elegant for a man in a cheap jacket. Emily clung to his hand as they entered, her wide eyes exploring everything. Daddy, this place looks like a castle. Yeah, except your dad's the janitor who got lost in it, he whispered. At the far end, a woman sat alone, perfectly composed, black dress, posture straight, eyes calm yet distant. She glanced at her watch, clearly unimpressed. That was her, Lydia Harper. CEO of one of the biggest firms in the city. Fierce, confident, feared by competitors, and, according to Marcus, completely alone. When Daniel approached, Lydia raised an eyebrow. You're 45 minutes late. He winced. Yeah, I know. I'm really sorry. My babysitter canceled last minute, and this little lady wouldn't take no for an answer. He gestured to Emily, who waved shyly. Lydia blinked, clearly not used to children interrupting her boardroom smooth evenings. Oh, she said softly. You brought your daughter. Yes, ma'am. I hope that's okay. We can reschedule if, but Emily tugged Lydia's sleeve. Hi. You're really pretty. Daddy said you're a big boss lady. Lydia froze, then did something she hadn't done in months. She laughed. Dinner started awkwardly. Daniel was nervous, fumbling with words, while Lydia tried to maintain her polished CEO composure. Yet Emily filled every silence, talking about her teddy, her favorite storybook, her daddy's pancakes, and Lydia listened. For the first time in years, she listened to something not connected to profit or success. She saw how Daniel looked at his daughter, with gentleness and pride. It touched something deep inside her, something she'd buried under years of ambition. Halfway through the meal, Emily leaned across the table and whispered loudly, Daddy says Mommy lives in heaven, but I think she watches us when we smile. Daniel froze. Lydia's smile faded. She didn't know what to say. The words hit her heart like a soft ache. Lydia excused herself for a moment and stood near the window. Her reflection looked strong, but suddenly she didn't feel that way. She had everything: wealth, power, respect, but not that. Not warmth. Not the sound of a little girl's laughter lighting up her evening. When she returned, Emily was coloring on a napkin. She handed it to Lydia. It's you. You're smiling. Daddy said sometimes people forget how. Lydia's throat tightened. Did he? Emily nodded. But I think you just forgot for a little while. It's okay, I forget my toys sometimes too. Daniel's face turned red. Emily. But Lydia only smiled through the shimmer in her eyes. She's right, she whispered. They ended dinner with laughter, awkward but genuine. As they stepped outside, the night air was cold. Lydia offered to call them a cab, but Daniel shook his head. We'll manage. It's just a few blocks. Thank you for not walking out when you saw us, he said quietly. She hesitated, looking at the man and his daughter, two people who had nothing to offer her except sincerity. Thank you for being late, she said softly. Otherwise, I might have missed this. The next morning, Lydia couldn't focus. The meeting room buzzed with voices, yet all she could think of was that little girl and her napkin drawing. That smile, when her assistant reminded her about the upcoming charity gala, Lydia impulsively said, cancel the luxury dinner. Host it at the children's hospital instead. Her staff stared. Lydia Harper never changed plans, especially not for charity. But she did. Because something had changed to that evening. Daniel was at the garage when his phone rang. Ms. Harper? Yes, Lydia's voice came, gentler than before. I wanted to thank you again. And Emily, too. Could I take her to the hospital gala next weekend? We're raising funds for kids in need, and she'd brighten the place more than any chandelier. Daniel blinked in surprise. You want to invite her? Lydia laughed softly. Yes. And maybe her dad too. I'd like to see that smile again. The night of the gala, Emily ran up to Lydia wearing a small white dress and holding a new teddy bear. Miss Lydia. Look. Daddy bought me a bear. I named her after you. Lydia knelt, hugging her. You did? Yes. Because you're brave, and nice, and you don't look lonely anymore. That sentence shattered the last wall around Lydia's heart. She turned to Daniel, tears glimmering. She has a gift, seeing what others hide. He nodded quietly. Yeah. She's her mom's girl. Lydia took Emily's hand and whispered, "Can I tell you a secret?" Emily nodded eagerly. Lydia leaned close and said, "You made me remember what home feels like." Later that night, after laughter, photos, and dancing, Lydia stood with Daniel on the balcony. City lights shimmered below. "I never thought I'd say this," she whispered, "but I'm glad you were late." He smiled. "So am I. Do you think she'll remember tonight?" Lydia asked, looking at Emily asleep on a chair nearby. Daniel's eyes softened. "She will. Kids remember kindness. It stays longer than pain." Lydia turned to him, her voice trembling. "Then maybe tonight. I learned how to love again." Weeks later, Lydia started volunteering at the community center Daniel took Emily to. What began as a chance meeting turned into friendship, and friendship slowly blossomed into something neither of them had planned, but both had secretly needed. And one night, while tucking Emily into bed after Lydia read her a story, Emily whispered something to Lydia that made her eyes fill with tears once more. "Miss Lydia," she said softly, "you can be my mommy if you want. Daddy's good at making pancakes, and you're good at smiling now." Lydia's heart broke open completely. She looked at Daniel, who stood frozen at the doorway, eyes shining. Lydia leaned down, kissed Emily's forehead, and whispered, "I'd be the luckiest mommy in the world."